In 1980, the small town was shaken to its core when its respected mayor and his 8-year-old daughter mysteriously disappeared. The mayor, a well-liked and trusted figure known for his dedication to the community, had attended a council meeting earlier that evening, while his daughter had reportedly stayed home with a babysitter. According to witnesses, the mayor left the meeting at around 9 p.m., planning to return home, but he never arrived. By the next morning, the babysitter reported that the father never returned, and the girl was also missing. Panic quickly spread, the entire town mobilized, with law enforcement, neighbors, and even surrounding communities launching an intensive search. Flyers were posted, nearby lakes and woods were combed, and helicopters scanned the area from above. Despite the overwhelming efforts, not a single clue surfaced, no vehicle, no signs of forced entry, no indication of where they had gone. What made the situation even more baffling was the mayor's spotless record and his seemingly happy family life. There were no known enemies or scandals that could explain such a sudden vanishing. People began to whisper theories, an abduction, a secret escape, even supernatural causes. For years, the mayor's home stood as a somber reminder, untouched, like a time capsule of a life interrupted. As anniversaries passed, hope faded, and the town quietly accepted that they might never know what happened, until nearly a decade later, when an unexpected discovery would reopen wounds and questions alike. Despite the massive search effort that followed the mayor and his daughter's disappearance, the case quickly turned cold. Investigators interviewed dozens of people, family members, friends, co-workers, and anyone who had seen the mayor on the night he vanished. Leads came in from across the state, including false sightings and vague tips, but nothing substantial ever emerged. The mayor's car was never found, and no ransom note or message was ever received. Police retraced his route from the town hall to his home countless times, but no sign of him or his daughter was uncovered. Theories swirled. Some believed it was a politically motivated abduction, others speculated the mayor had enemies he had never spoken of. There were even whispers of secret affairs or debts that might have driven him to run. The daughter's disappearance only deepened the confusion. Why take her too? Was she collateral damage, or had she seen something she shouldn't have? The town was left in a cloud of unanswered questions. Candlelight vigils were held each year, but over time attendance dwindled as hope faded. Eventually, the case files were moved to cold storage, leaving behind only fading photos and unanswered prayers. The once vibrant community that rallied together was left haunted, not just by the loss of their leader and a little girl, but by the silence that followed. The absence became part of the town's identity, a quiet scar that no one could explain. 8 years after the disappearance, in 1988, the town's historic church, St. Matthew's Chapel, underwent long overdue renovations. Built in the late 1800s, the church had always stood as a spiritual and social hub, but time had taken its toll. The foundation was weakening, and sections of the old stone floor near the altar had begun to crack. During the renovation, workers began carefully removing tiles and digging beneath to reinforce the base. That's when they made a chilling discovery. Beneath the altar, hidden under layers of stone and old timber, they uncovered a sealed crawlspace that was not listed in any of the building's blueprints or renovation plans. Curious and confused, the crew removed the rotting boards and descended into the narrow chamber. Inside, the air was thick, stale, and undisturbed. What they found stopped them cold. 2 skeletal remains, one significantly smaller than the other, lying together in the dark. Alongside them were the decaying remnants of clothing, a rusted watch, and what appeared to be a child's stuffed animal, items later confirmed to have belonged to the mayor and his daughter. The church was immediately cordoned off, and authorities were called in to investigate. The once routine renovation had suddenly become the center of a long-dormant mystery. For the first time in nearly a decade, the town had tangible evidence of what happened, but the location of the remains only deepened the mystery and raised even darker questions. When investigators entered the hidden chamber beneath the church, it became immediately clear that what they had uncovered was more than just a tragic accident. The skeletal remains were found in a confined, almost coffin-like space with no visible means of escape. There were no signs of a cave-in or structural collapse. This room had been deliberately sealed. The adult skeleton, identified through dental records as the mayor, was found positioned protectively near the smaller remains, assumed to be his daughter. Her tiny skeleton still clutched the remains of a stuffed rabbit, now moth-eaten and fragile with age. Surrounding them were remnants of fabric, decayed wood, and a rusted flashlight, its batteries long dead. The eerie stillness of the room painted a chilling scene of desperation and final moments in darkness. A forensic team confirmed that the remains had been undisturbed since the early 1980s. There were no signs of blunt force trauma or gunshot wounds, but their positioning and the sealed nature of the space suggested they had been intentionally entombed alive, or placed there after death and then sealed in. Either possibility was horrifying. The room itself had been masterfully hidden, tucked into a structural void beneath the altar that only someone intimately familiar with the church's architecture could have known existed. The discovery shattered the town's quiet acceptance of the past. It wasn't just a disappearance anymore, it was a crime. The Sacred Heart of the town had unknowingly housed a grim tomb, and what once was a place of solace was now ground zero for a dark and deeply personal mystery. As the investigation into the hidden chamber continued, it became increasingly clear that the mayor and his daughter's deaths were not just tragic, they were part of a sinister cover-up. The location of the bodies, concealed beneath the church altar, suggested not only intentional concealment but also possible involvement from someone within the church itself. Authorities re-examined records, blueprints, and renovation logs, only to find that the crawlspace where the bodies were discovered did not exist on any official documents. That kind of secrecy pointed to someone with authority, someone who knew the building inside and out. Further inquiries uncovered that in the months leading up to the mayor's disappearance, he had begun looking into financial irregularities involving church funds and land ownership issues connected to the diocese. Some speculated he may have stumbled upon a web of corruption involving prominent town figures and was silenced to prevent exposure. Others believed he had trusted someone in the church, perhaps a friend or confidant, who ultimately betrayed him. The idea that the town's spiritual sanctuary was used to entomb its own mayor and his innocent child sent shockwaves through the community. A former maintenance worker at the church, long since relocated, was later questioned but died before any charges could be brought. Though no arrests were ever made, public sentiment shifted. The disappearance was no longer a cold case, but a quiet scandal wrapped in religious silence. The church's reputation never fully recovered, and to this day, townspeople speak of the discovery in hushed tones, wondering how justice slipped through their fingers so easily.